Hi, I'm Lindsay Crossness, Director of Education for the Orpheum Theater Group, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to another episode of In Their Shoes, where I, along with members of our Orpheum Star Council, interview alumni of Orpheum Theater programming who are currently working in the performing arts. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our generous donors and sponsors whose support allows us to continue to provide arts education to the Mid-South community. Thank you. Our guest today is Breyannah Tillman, graduate of Ridgeway High School and resident company member with Playhouse on the Square in Memphis. Welcome, Breyannah.
Hello.
Hello. It's so great to see your face.
It's good to see you guys. I'm so excited to talk with you guys.
Yeah. So you and I first met when you were a lead actress nominee for the Orpheum High School Musical Theater Awards for Aida at Ridgeway High School. Just seems like yesterday. It was not. A little bit ago. So can you talk a little bit about when you started performing, when you started doing musical theater, and when did you think this might be something that I want to pursue?
So I'll just give a little backstory. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a church kid, so I've always sang in church. Never was a lead singer at first. I love to dance, and I always wanted to act. I did Stax Music Academy 2004 and 2006. I did their Snap Summer Academy, and they would always fight for me, either dance, theater, or music. And theater would always win because I love to act. And so I knew that I loved being on stage then. And I went to Colonial Middle School, which is a performing arts middle school. I started off with the late great Kimber Cox in the theater department, and then he said, "Your voice is too golden to stay over here. We need you to go to a choir." I went to choir. I did all West and all state all throughout until my senior year. I did all of that, and so that's where I learned that I really wanted to perform, but not just do theater. I wanted to do musical theater. And then from there, musical theater, I went to Ridgeway because one of my mom's friend's kids, who is now my best friend of like over 10, 15 years now, he went to Ridgeway and he was doing musicals. And my mom was like, "You should go there. They do really good musicals there." And so I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And from that point on, I knew I wanted to do musical theater because my first actual show was Carousel.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yes.
So you have a lot of experience with various community theaters in the area, and you've had principal roles, you've had ensemble roles. Do you prefer one over the other?
I would say I do like principal roles because they make me study a lot quicker, a lot harder for that reason. And it's a lot more pressure. And I'm what do they call it? Adrenaline junkie. Like, I guess you guys didn't see that I did not turn the camera on until like 1 minute before. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I really like the idea of working really hard, really quickly, and studying and learning. So principal roles for when I'm really in that adrenaline mode. But I really like being in the background, even though I stick out like a sore thumb because I'm 5'10". And I'm plus size, so of course I stick out like a sore thumb. But it's okay because I love being there because it's not as much work, and you get to sit back and you watch all these people do what you do and pour out their hearts. So I like both. There's not one I like more than the other, but sometimes I would prefer to do a principal role because it kind of keeps you to yourself, and you don't have to you get to work on your own terms and time instead of having a ton of information forced at you at once and then sorting through it on your personal time. So
Right.
So both are good. Both are good for me.
So let's turn it over to Star Council. Danny, do you have a question for Breyannah?
Yes, I do. Hello, I'm Danny.
Hi, Danny.
So my question is, how did you break through the African American barriers? So while you're inside of African American theaters, how do you stick out from the rest?
Well, let's see. When I say that's a good question, that's a really good question because I do all theaters. I'm not all lives matter in the situation, but I do all theaters. But even in the African American theaters, I just bring all the training that I have. And breaking through those barriers, it was just like, I had to kind of set myself apart, even though I'm a part of the big number and the big chorus or the whole team. I had to set myself apart by coming in overtly prepared, like knowing the entire script, even knowing other people's lines other than my cue lines, knowing other people's songs other than like cue lines in a song or, the song that cues you in. Just kind of one thing that I've learned that some people just don't come prepared, and I was one of those people for a while. But what really stuck out is that I started to become way more prepared than I needed to be, and that's what really kind of sets you apart for me. Another thing is that I would train outside of school. I train outside of work, and that, I put in the time, I put in the effort, and talent is always there anyway. Like once you get into it and you know what you can do, your talent is going to be there, but it's the work behind it, because a lot of talented people just don't make it, but it's when you actually put in the work. So that's what I feel like kind of sets me apart in every space that I go into, is that even if I don't come prepared, when it's time to be prepared, I am, and that's it, so.
Thank you.
Of course.
How about Caleb? Caleb, do you have a question for Breyannah?
Yeah, so I guess one of my questions is, so your resume said that you're a resident Playhouse actress. What is the process of becoming a resident Playhouse?
I get that question all the time, and I'm going to tell you, I have no idea. And I'm going to tell you why I have no idea. You get a call from someone on the executive staff, and they're like, can you come in and talk? And I'm like, what I want to talk about? I do what I'm supposed to do. I walk in this building prepared and I walk out. What y'all want to talk about? But I've worked at that theater since 2013, I think, was my first show. I was like 20, maybe. And so I've been doing shows there literally every year since 2013. And the same work that I told Danny, that's what I put in. I have no idea how the process works or how they choose people, but they choose people pretty much on their own terms. I honestly couldn't tell you, and I hate that I can't, but that's kind of how they do it. They just kind of choose people, I guess, that they feel, that adds, value to the space in the way that they're looking for it, and that's neither right nor wrong, but that's their process. All I know is that they came and said, hey, would you like to? And I said, yes. Yeah. Is that good? Okay.
Of being involved, right? Just getting involved and
being involved. Absolutely. Yeah. Showing my I don't know what to, like, just showing my commitment to every space that I'm in. That I think that's kind of the top thing, is that, when you do have rehearsals and you're not in another show, we're not, changing out schedules and all the kind of stuff. Like, I'm working my world kind of around that, because that's what I really want to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with doing anything else. But from my perspective, in my opinion, is that I work my world and my schedules around being in that space and show commitment. So that could be a really big thing, which I know it is. So, yeah.
Thank you. Jasmine, do you have a question for Breyannah?
I do. So I go to Ridgeway currently right now.
Yes!
And I just want to know, what was theater like for you when you were in high school versus how it was now? I was just curious.
Okay, so when I got to high school, it was a whole different world, okay? Because I had done a show at Colonial, and I'd only done a regular, like a straight play. And so when I got to Ridgeway, of course, every space, which is something that we all have to understand, every space has their process and how they choose people, how they, what they're looking for. Every director, every producer, everything is different, and it varies per person, but there's like certain skeleton layouts that are kind of the same everywhere. But when I got there, a lot of things were kind of like in seniority. And I kind of broke onto the scene at the time, because when I first started, there were like 40 kids in a musical. But it was a different day and time. That was in 2007. So, things are a lot different. But when I got there, it was just, it was extremely professional. like no talking. There wasn't a lot of everybody needs to be quiet, which I find, you know, even in professional spaces, there's a lot of that. But at Ridgeway, when I first started there was like nobody talk. Like you come in knowing your stuff, and if you don't know it, you better get to a corner and learn it, because your part will, especially if you're a little quick, you know, you have a little quick line, it will be given to somebody else, you know. So it's a lot. It's not much different than what we have now, because at the time I had Julie Watson. I don't know if she's still there, right?
Yeah.
Miss Watson, Miss Rambo. So she pretty much like structured it the way we have it in the community and professionally, and she didn't let, you know, a lot of stuff slide and stuff. So it's kind of it's actually the same from when I was doing it. I don't know what it's like now, but literally the exact same structure that I have in the community. It's what I had at Ridgeway, and like the rehearsal process is like starting after school and then ending at at the right time. No minutes over unless you're trying to stay. Like it was very structured. So I'm not sure what it's like now, but that's how it is. Like doing both of them. She gave us structure there. So when we did go out into the real world and do theater, it wasn't like a culture shock. It was like, okay, this is how we do this. I did that with Miss Watson. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about Ty? Ty, do you have a question?
Yeah, so you've worked a lot in Memphis all over, obviously, and I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about, venturing outside of Memphis and trying out theaters outside of there, just to kind of adapt to a new environment.
Yes. So I haven't done theater outside of Memphis, but I have toured. I tour professionally with a classical gospel choir. So I use my classical training, which I trained with Julie Freeman here in Memphis, classical training. I was like a mezzo soprano. And so I did a lot of that, and I did that in Germany. I did like a 30-city Germany tour where I did all these different countries, and I've done a little bit of work outside of here, nothing in the actual theater. So I have, I send out tapes, I've done Broadway auditions, I've done, and that's something I think is so important that, I let people know that I don't just work here. Even though you may only see me on stage here, I send out a lot of work. I send out a lot of tapes, and that requires a lot of diligence, but also that's the networking. And I'm those people about jumping, but I like to secure the bag and the place. I'm just a lot of preparing here, and so yeah, oh no, can y'all hear me still?
We got you.
Okay. I'm doing just a lot of preparation and to move around and move outside of here. So yes, I have been thinking about it. I've been working on it like crazy. And a few years ago, I did do a 30-city tour for like two months. So yeah.
So would you speak to the sending in tapes a little bit more, because I feel like, well, especially now, but it's more and more the way of the world, right? To audition, to send in audition materials remotely as opposed to doing that in person. And what do you think the difference is? Do you think your opportunity or chances are as strong sending in things remotely?
So I have a little bias with it, but right now it's the way of the world, like you said. But right now, I mean, it is what it is. But before, I know that only reason why I started sending in tapes afterwards because I already had done like a physical audition in a different city. But from my experience, but I think if you can show as much as you can, like, and it kind of takes a bit from like learning how things look on camera. And making it look like it should look on stage, and like just kind of studying other people's work on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter of their like audition tapes. That's something that's really big. You kind of got to see what the standard looks like for each city or each space that you're trying to audition for. So in my opinion, if you can pull it off, then it doesn't matter if your talent is shining through that camera or not. That your talent will shine through the camera. But if you're a person that you feel like you are a completely in-house person, With right now, you don't have to get used to the camera. But I would say if you can, go do the audition, go inside and go in person. But right now, I just feel like we all got to study it and try our best with it, because that's just what's happening right now. So that's my opinion on it. I'm a little biased, but
Right. Josiah, do you have a question for Breyannah?
Yes, ma'am. I actually had the chance to see you in Memphis. Wonderful job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But, through your whole acting career, what's one of your favorite memories that you've experienced in a musical?
One of my favorite memories. I want to back it up to 2013, my very first time doing a Playhouse on the Square show. I was one of the church ladies in The Color Purple. And it was one of those experiences that you can't recreate, if you get what I'm saying. Like, it's just, it was like a family. Although I'm always set in these like trios, and I'd have all of my rehearsals like away from the whole cast and stuff. I got into the cast, and then we started doing the shows, and our parts were kind of like in syncing with the rest of the cast. That was an experience, just being able to be friends and be, a family with these people that I still talk to literally today. Like, I literally was talking to people who have moved away, haven't seen them in almost 10 years, but that was like one of my favorite experiences, because I was like one of the youngest people in the cast, other than the tiny children. I was the youngest person in the cast. So it was one of those things where everybody kind of came around me like, oh my gosh, it's that little girl that can sing, and she's here. And it just kind of felt good to have people who are older than me, have been doing it longer than me, kind of just showing me the ropes and showing me the way of what I need to do, to get in and out of this space and be able to create this, make this dream a reality, and not just make it a goal, but something that I'm actually going to do and make sure it's, executed. So that experience is what really like drove me into like, okay, this is overdrive. This is really what I want to do. I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know I wanted, and now I know. So that was the show. That was one of the experiences that really stuck it in for me.
And you also received an Ostrander Award for that performance, right?
I did.
Yeah, that was great. So what would you say the best advice you've received is in terms of pursuing this professionally?
The best advice is to jump. Take the risk. Spend the money. You've been saving it anyway. Just jump. And all the no's. See, you're going to get more no's than yeses, you know what I mean? Like, but never ever count yourself out, because what's for you is for you. You know what I mean? That's kind of across the board from all of my friends who do theater professionally, community, however they do it. They've all kind of said that in one way or another, that you really just have to jump, and don't ever take a no personally. Just take it as, oh, I just got a networking opportunity. And can I give a quick example of that?
Absolutely.
So I won't name names or the actual show that I auditioned for, but this is a really big turning point in my personal career. Right after I finished Dreamgirls here in Memphis, this is right before all the Ostrander stuff. I've been like had been doing it for like 6 or 7 weeks, like performing it consistently. And it was literally the week after I just got off like from doing the show. And I got an email and a text message from a friend saying, hey, I think you should come to New York and audition for this show. I think you'll be perfect in it. You've already done one of the roles before. Why don't you come and audition? And I was like, New York, Broadway revival? You sure? And she was like, yes, come on. You need to come up here and do it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I told my mom, and I was like, Mama, for my 25th birthday, this is what I want. I want to go to New York and not just go see all the sights, but I want to audition for this show. Now, it's not a definite no or yes yet, because y'all know, like, Broadway shows can take for a cast. I mean, we all know that. Like, it could take up to 3-4 years before they even put you in, and then you get to a table read after 4 years, like, oh, I feel like I aged out. Nope, they still want you. But it's about the networking opportunities that actually come about when you walk into the room and you make your statement as who you are. So not saying I didn't get chose or did get chose for the role because they're still, working on it. I went in, I did this audition, then I ended up with a call in about January. And this guy said, I've been looking for you all over the internet. Like, I've been looking for you and looking for you and looking for you. I got your phone number. I found it. Nobody answered. And I was like, what's going on? He was like, can you send in another tape? Because we have a new set of producers. And the last producer said that they wanted to see you. And then we looked you up, found some stuff on you, and we really want to see you. And I was like, I did this like 6-7 months ago. I had never seen this person a day in my life, but they'd seen my work. So one thing that's something that always stuck with me, and something that I feel like everybody should know, that all those no's or what you think is a no may not always be a no. You need to go into the room, even the rooms that you feel like you don't fit in, especially for my Black girls, you feel like you don't fit in their room. Please go show off your talent. Please go show them what you have to offer, because you never know what they're going to look for the next show. They're going to remember, oh, I remember that girl. Find her stuff. Find her paperwork. You know what I mean? And, so that's something that I would love for people to kind of understand. And then that's like the biggest thing that kind of stuck with me, is that always go into the room, because you never know who knows you. And then come to find out, this person had been talking to one of the directors here in Memphis about me. You get what I'm saying? Like, your name is already in rooms that you haven't even stepped into. So that's something that has always stuck with me, is that I'm going to put in my work. I'm going to put in my effort, because what's for me is for me. And there's nothing that can stop me. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So we always end this series with a few questions, little fun questions that you have not seen. So, surprise. So assuming that we could all leave our homes as we wanted to, come and go, right? What's the one thing that you don't leave home without?
Come on, my shoes.
Okay, this girl loves shoes, y'all. She loves shoes. All right, so I'm going to skip to the last question then. You got to show us your shoes.
Okay, so I'm not going to stand up, but I brought them, and I brought my backup outfit, because anybody who knows me knows that my car is junky, and it has tons of clothes for every occasion, and there's like a carry-around makeup bag of the stuff that won't melt, right? Like my little actual theater bag. So these are okay, y'all, these have been my favorite shoes for about 2 months, okay? Like, do you see this? I don't know if you can see it. See, there's a thick, chunky heel with the Pomeranian on the back. And then, giving you professional in the front, party in the back. Here, do you see this?
I love it.
If I were standing before you guys, I would have something similar to what I have on, because you see the shiny duster, right? I would have on an all solid like black dress or something, casual but cute. And I would put this with it, right? Because this is the exact same thing as I have on, right? But it's a chaqueta. It's a jacket. So yeah, that and those shoes. Yeah, I'm really into my makeup and my clothes, y'all. So
I love it. All right, so this is my last question.
Okay.
Favorite Orpheum memory?
No, I found a picture of my first time getting on a flight was to New York with Lindsay and Paul Powers, who was the guy who won the year that I won. And my favorite Orpheum memory was meeting Lindsay at the airport, and my mom is standing there, and she's like, I'll see you in a couple of days. My mom came up too, and I look at Lindsay, and I turn back around, and my mom like snaps this picture. So there's a picture of me like this on my suitcase, and Lindsay standing there smiling at me. And it was one of the most amazing moments, because it was like, oh my gosh, I'm really getting ready to go up here and do this because somebody actually likes me, in the theater space. And it was just like, oh my goodness. And so it was when I really like started to get close to Lindsay. So I think that's my favorite like Orpheum moment. But beside of the theater, let's see. Oh, I got one. And I say it's a favorite moment now because it made me who I am. I was in the High School Musical Theater Awards the year before I won. I was on the back row, okay, of that big opening number. Everybody knows that opening number. I fought my way to get to that front row because I've been dancing since I was 8 years old, okay, and trained and all kind of stuff. And this man would not put me in the front row. I mean, he would not put me nowhere near the front. I auditioned until there was no end, you know, because they would make you audition each line. Okay, so I ended up on the back row of this line, pretty much off stage. It really wasn't on stage, but I was enjoying every moment of it because I got to be on the Orpheum stage. Okay, the following year, okay, I am going into this audition, which is a private audition. We go in with the judges, and the man who would not put me on the front row and not put me up there literally turned to me and said, "Breyannah, you were created to do this." It's just after my audition, I sang the song. He said, "You were created to do this." I mean, he was like, "You can go into whatever field you want to go into, but you will see that you were created to do this type of theater." And I was like, oh. So those moments combined, I think that's like one of my favorite moments for somebody to be like, "No, you don't belong on the front row," and then kind of turn around and say, "This is your thing." Hey, you know, it was serendipity, so.
It could have been because of your height, too. You know?
I know what it was, but let me have that moment. It was my height. I was taller than every child on this stage. Okay? But you know,
Yeah.
She wants to be a friend.
I hear you. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you for spending time with us. And we hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of In Their Shoes. Thanks, everybody.